This morning, the problem that Texas just can't seem to prevent.
How do we fix this, or is there a fix? I think there is. I think there's somewhere in the middle there.
At least 4 conservative Texas Republicans say it's time to discuss this. But will anything legislatively come from the Allen massacre? State Rep Jeff Leach, one of our guests. Migrants moving across the southern border this weekend seeking asylum. Is President Biden doing enough? How about Mexico? 2 of our questions for Cameron County Judge Eddie Trevino. Why do Texas Republicans want to end countywide voting? State Rep Christian Manuel is on the House Elections Committee. And 2 weeks left before the legislature adjourns. Where do school vouchers stand, teacher pay raises, and property tax cuts?
Inside Texas Politics with Jason Whiteley starts now.
Good Sunday morning this Mother's Day. Lots of politics to discuss. Let's start with the headlines first, though. Education savings accounts suffered another setback in the state legislature. The House of Representatives rejected a last-minute push by supporters to give parents $7,500 a year to spend on private school tuition. Rural and suburban Republicans in the House remain against it, but Governor Abbott continues to lobby for it. So if this does not pass by the end of the month, watch to see if it ends up in a special legislative session the governor could call. State Senator Roland Gutierrez, now the second Texas Democrat, saying he's going to run against U.S. Senator Ted Cruz next year. Gutierrez represents San Antonio, parts of the border, and Uvalde. He has been out front trying to raise the age to 21 to purchase some semi-automatic rifles after 19 fourth graders were murdered in Uvalde last May. Gutierrez will first, though, have to face Dallas Congressman Colin Allred in the Democratic primary. And State Rep Brian Slayton resigned from the Texas legislature just before the House voted unanimously to expel him. Slayton is a Republican from Roy City. The House General Investigating Committee released a report saying the lawmaker provided alcoholic drinks to a 19-year-old staffer and then slept with her. Slayton sent Governor Abbott a letter saying he wanted to spend more time with his family, but did not mention the scandal surrounding his resignation. This morning, we are starting with the problem that Texas just can't seem to prevent. The state has seen 6 major mass shootings over the last 6 years. Families murdered while shopping, worshipers slaughtered at church, children gunned down in their classroom. Add Allen to the list now. But the aftermath of this one looks a little different. At least 4 conservative Republicans in Texas are softening their stances, at least sound to be softening their stances, including State Rep Jeff Leach, a Republican who lives about a mile from where that Allen massacre occurred. Chairman Leach, good morning to you. I don't remember the last time 4 conservative Republicans said that there needs to be some way to address gun violence. You said the other day after the shooting in Allen, we will respond boldly, swiftly, smartly, and that we will do everything possibly to address this head on. What should Texans expect?
Well, Jason, this horrific tragedy, this shooting took place right in the heart of my district, about a mile, no less than a mile from where I live. This is home for us. These are my constituents. These are my neighbors and our friends. And this has really hit our community hard. So I think this is one of those issues where we've gotten so used to retreating to our political corners and reading political talking points and becoming so entrenched in what we believe that we're unwilling to even communicate or meet. Now, look, I'm a firm Second Amendment supporter. I am not going to waver from that nor apologize from it. But are there things that we can do and policies that we can advance here at the state capitol that can protect our citizens and prevent this from happening again? Yes. And I'm open to those things and eager to be a part of those discussions.
Do you expect anything legislatively to come from the Allen shooting?
I do. I think that you're going to see what you've seen in the past. Unfortunately, this has happened way too many times in the past, but you're going to see not only conversations, but you're going to see real action that's laser targeted, not just to make ourselves feel good, not just to quote, do something, but to do the right thing when it comes from a policy perspective. And I've got a bill on the House floor. It was actually passed out of the Senate 31-0. It was the first bill the Senate passed this session that's meant to address mental health issues and making sure our database at the state and federal level are linked and they're keeping guns out of the hands of people who don't need them. I have that bill in the House. I expect to pass that bill here in the next week to 10 days. That bill will go a long way. It's just one step of many that we should consider here to go a long way to keeping guns out of the hands of people who wish to do harm, who want to break our laws, who want to inflict mass violence. that's one solution of many, and I'm proud to be down here leading the charge on it.
But the Allen shooter, as you know, didn't have a record, didn't have any mental health issues. This wouldn't have stopped that person. And you know, I've heard mental health. Everyone's heard mental health for so long. I don't know of any mass shooter that's ever sought mental health help before committing a crime.
I don't have any bill in front of me right now that I've seen that could have prevented this, but I'm open to any and all solutions. We have to come together. We have to find solutions. We should not be comfortable or okay with this continuing to happen in our country. It's now hit my backyard. It's hit my hometown. It has rocked me and my family and our district in a way that none of us imagined possible. But here we are, and we have an opportunity, and I would say an obligation to act and to do the right thing, to do it carefully but boldly. And I think we're going to do that in the coming days.
Mr. Chairman, it's 2 years until the next regular legislative session. Do you think that this is something that can wait until then, or is this something that the governor should call a special session on later this summer?
We've got a little less than 3 weeks left in this legislative session. We're going to use any and all tools in the toolbox to advance legislation that will protect our Second Amendment rights and yet keep our communities safe. We've got time left here to do it, and we're working around the clock to do just that. When it comes to whether a special session should be called on this or any other issue, I know our governor well enough to know that he's going to be careful in doing so. That if and when a special session needs to be called, he'll do so. But make no mistake, this is an emergency for our state. This is an emergency for every state, and we ought to treat it as such. And we ought to do everything we can using every tool in the toolbox and convening when necessary, when appropriate, and when right to keep this from happening again.
Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Thanks, Jason.
All right, nothing the state legislature has done so far seems to have slowed the gun violence in our state. Last weekend, Governor Greg Abbott repeated the line we have heard before, saying improving mental health care in Texas is the key to stopping mass shootings. Ian Mitra is the senior managing editor of the Texas Tribune in Austin. Ian, good to see you this morning. Is there any evidence that improving mental health care in a state will prevent these? And secondly, how does Texas compare to other states with mental health care?
Look, across the board, everyone has said that mental health is a component, and certainly, during the Governor Abbott's tenure, there has been, billions of dollars of state money that's been put into mental health systems across the state. But, one nonprofit advocacy group kind of ranked Texas last when it comes to mental health spending. And that's it's basically that there's a shortage of mental health professionals, with a booming population in Texas and growing demand. It's just a challenge too. And a lot of mental health professionals will also say that, you can't just talk about these things in terms of mental health because it creates a stigma, and it's not just about one element. So it's a challenge that the state, is struggling to figure out, right, because as we see from what's happening.
Sure. And of course, gun violence likely to be one of the topics at the Texas Tribune Festival, Trib Fest as it's known, later this year. Briefly in the last few seconds here, who else is coming that you expect? What are the big names? Because you always attract the biggest ones in politics.
Yeah, and it's really about trying to get, to foster conversations that don't happen otherwise. Some of the top lawmakers who are coming, Senator Ted Cruz is going to be there, former Representative Gabby Giffords, and then other members of Congress from Texas, including Tony Gonzalez, right, and Lizzie Fletcher. It'll be a lot of good conversation. All
right, that's September 21st through the 23rd in Austin. Ian, thanks so much. Back to you in a moment. Coming up, parts of the Texas border under a state of emergency this weekend. Cameron County Judge Eddie Trevino from Brownsville on the thousands of asylum seekers pouring into South Texas. And why do Texas Republicans want to end countywide voting? One of our questions for State Rep Christian Manuel on the House Elections Committee when Inside Texas Politics resumes. Welcome back to Inside Texas Politics. This weekend, Customs and Border Patrol can no longer immediately expel families and individuals seeking asylum in the United States. The federal rule called Title 42 that allowed that ended on Thursday. And right now, Brownsville anticipates 6 times the number of immigrants it normally sees. Eddie Trevino is the Cameron County judge overseeing the southern tip of Texas, who we spoke to from his office in Brownsville. Judge Trevino, welcome to the program here. How many people are you expecting to be coming across the bridges across the Rio Grande there into Brownsville and Cameron County over the weekend?
I wish I could give you a good number, but based upon what we've been seeing over the last week or two, we're expecting anywhere from 3,000 to 8,000 potentially.
3 to 8,000 a day. How does that compare to normal numbers that you normally see?
It's 2 or 3 times or 6 times more than what we've been receiving. It had been probably on the average between 300 to 1,000 over the last year or two.
Judge, to make sure I understand what's going on the ground there, it sounds like that bus stations are overburdened, that airports are overburdened as these migrants, these asylum seekers continue to go to points north in the U.S. Is the Cameron County Sheriff's Office, are hospitals there? Are any of them, breaking at the seams?
No, not yet. Not yet.
Do you expect that to happen?
We're preparing for that possibility, obviously, but we have not seen that because the coordination between the city and state and federal agencies has been so good that we've been able to get them in and out. You mentioned that the airports. I would say that they're being burdened, but they're not overburdened at this point.
Judge, tell us who these people are, because depending on which outlet people watch or read, they're either the worst people in the world, or they're just folks looking to to live a safe life somewhere. Who are these people that are coming into Texas through Cameron County?
These are the same people that have been coming to this country for over 240 years. They're just maybe coming from a different avenue. They're coming from all over the world. Obviously, the great majority of them are coming from Latin America, South America, and Central America, but many Europeans. We've got Ukrainians, you've got Asians, Chinese. I mean, the whole world is crossing here. It's not just the Latin American individuals. Eastern European people are crossing at our southern borders, and the great majority of them are doing it exactly for the reason you said. They're seeking a better life and running away or trying to avoid strife, conflict, or threats in their home countries.
Judge, is President Biden doing enough?
Well, it's a tough situation because honestly, it's Congress's responsibility to set up and propose legislation. I'm not going to point a finger at any one individual or at any one party. I think there's plenty of responsibility to go around, and I know that if they put their minds to it, if they put their the letters at the end of their name aside, they can get things done.
Is Mexico doing enough?
Another good question. Probably more, just like on our end, more could be done, but I know that the conversations are being had. I speak to my counterparts at the local level and at the state level, and the coordination is probably getting better between them, but it'd be great to set up one of those regional or several regional processing centers in Mexico, and the coordination obviously needs to be done better, but I think we're all responsible to make our system better.
Judge, before I let you go, I want to ask you about the latest on the driver, that person driving that Range Rover that plowed into that bus stop, killing a number of people there in Brownsville. Have you heard anything to suggest this was a deliberate act?
No, my understanding that the initial analysis or results from the toxicology report indicated that this individual had some controlled substances in his system. We haven't seen anything, and the police department hasn't given any indication of any evidence of support that it was intentional. It was just a terrible, negligent act of somebody under the influence, and these poor people were at the wrong place at the wrong time, kind of the way, unfortunately, the world seems to be today.
Judge, thanks so much for your time. Good luck to you.
Thank you. Appreciate you having us on.
Texas Republicans, some of them at least, want to eliminate countywide voting centers. The reason why is uncertain. These are the convenient voting centers letting people vote anywhere in their county rather than in their own neighborhood at their precinct. The Senate passed this bill. The House has it now. And State Rep Christian Manuel sits on the House Elections Committee, the body that might take it up. He also represents a Southeast Texas district, including Beaumont and Port Arthur. Representative, thank you for the time this morning. This bill, Senate Bill 990, has a lot of people scratching their heads wondering why it is necessary to eliminate countywide voting on Election Day. What kind of arguments have you heard for this?
Is that it's not safe, that there's voting inconsistency, and really and truly there is so far there isn't any evidence of this. What this is some people who are upset with some issues that have happened in elections in one city, Houston in particular, in Harris County. And they're basically trying to find a solution to problems that they don't know if they exist or not, it seems. And so they're just trying to say, let's just get rid of it. Let's just go to precinct voting like we used to. And it's a little strange.
If this were to pass, let's say, and signed into law by the governor, what kind of impact do you think it would have as far as voting?
This would be devastating. You would have people who are used to going to one specific voting location, and then all of a sudden they would be told you can't vote here. And they would say, well, I've been voting here for over 10 years. And they would say, well, now with the law, you'd have to go all the way home, or if you were at a different location, it would cause people to not even know where to vote. It would be more confusion, especially in rural areas, for people who get off of work later, who didn't know this. It would put them in a position where they would possibly not be able to vote. So it would be very devastating for a lot of people, especially in Jefferson County.
Representative, to my knowledge, there's not a single case of fraud having to do with a countywide election center in the state of Texas. What do you think this is all about?
I think this is unfortunately a case for voter suppression. Without any evidence, we are just creating what I call hearsay laws that are not even admissible in a courtroom. But somehow we're making these the law that you have to live under, when you couldn't prosecute someone for the type of evidence that people are saying that they currently have, unfortunately.
Representative, we appreciate the time. We'll be watching to see what the House Elections Committee does.
As we all will.
15 days left in the state legislature. Where do school vouchers stand? Teacher pay raises and property taxes. We'll discuss those next on the roundtable. But if you want to find out step by step how to lower your own property taxes right now, download our latest episode of Yaltix. You can look for it wherever you get your podcasts. Time now for Reporters Roundtable to put the headlines in perspective. I am Mitra, back with us from the Texas Tribune in Austin. Bud Kennedy, a columnist at the Fort Worth Star-Telegram, and Bernadine Steptoe, political producer at WFAA in Dallas. Ian, let's start with you. This is our first chance really to talk about what happened in Allen last Saturday. I mentioned on Monday, it looks like Governor Abbott has already moved on. On Wednesday or Thursday, he told Fox News there will be no gun-related legislation coming out of the Allen tragedy. Do you expect any lasting changes from what we saw last weekend?
Well, it's hard to see, we're in the period of the legislative session where we're past a lot of deadlines too. So legislatively, it's hard to see a lot of movement. I mean, one of the things that we did see after the shooting was legislation that was backed by families of victims in Uvalde related to raising the age from 18 to 21 of semi-automatic weapons. That bill didn't move to the past a deadline. But I think, more so than legislatively, I think what the key to action here to watch is going to be, as in we saw in Uvalde, just aspects from communities and their response.
And Bud, one other thing we are watching as well is those four Republicans, conservative Republicans, who say, listen, it's time to have a conversation about this. One Republican told me, a donor said, this is emotion talking. This is not them talking about something they're going to be able to get passed.
Yeah, they can say that that'll happen, but at this point it's going to have to go into a special session, and that's not likely to be a special session topic. It's going to take 2 years of hearings and committees that really don't produce any results. What I hope does change is the way this was handled. Politicians need to speak after a hurricane or a tornado and before and after and tell people how to feel. But after a crime, the focus needs to be on the victims. If politicians come, they should grieve quietly with the victims and pray. They don't need to be up making speeches.
Bernadine, what do you make of this so far politically?
Politically, I don't see anything happening because look at how the state leaders are dealing with it. They primarily apparently just moved on, and you have Governor Abbott who's talking about the southern border because that's a safer issue for them to discuss. Now, I think that until we see the voters or see the people in the state of Texas rise up and do something about it in terms of voting at the ballot, you're not going to see anything that's going to stop or even address. Yeah. They want to say that guns won't help, but how do they know? or regulating guns.
Polls show that people are in support of doing something, but those people haven't shown up at the ballot box to cast their ballot in favor of that so far.
Absolutely.
Bud, let's talk about the final 15 days of the Texas legislature. What's going to get done, what's not going to get done. We have days left here.
We'll see another version of vouchers come back on Monday. We'll talk about the ESAs and what happens there. There's still a lot of hot button issues coming over from the Senate. The Senate will still be busy, and then the House will take on a lot of those measures that come over from the Senate. You still got things like what used to be the drag queen bill. I think that drag performances have been taken out of it, but we'll see a lot of hot button issues still in the next couple of weeks.
And Bernadine, property taxes still remains unsettled as well. The House and Senate have different versions.
And it doesn't appear as if those versions are they're going to come together on it. I think that is a topic that we're going to see in a special session. There's just not enough time. It appears as if something is going to happen.
What do you think about that, Ian? I mean, a special session. It seems likely right now, but lawmakers work best when they're down to the clock on this thing.
Boy, you said it. Yeah, there's going to be a lot of wheeling and dealing in these last couple of weeks, particularly on property taxes. And that, I agree. That's going to, if that doesn't get passed before the end of the regular session, we should expect a special on that. So, a lot to watch for. But certainly property taxes is something that everyone, in Republican leadership across the House and Senate, the governor's office really want to get taken care of.
Yeah, indeed, one of their priorities. Good deal. Ian, Bud, thank you so much. Bernadine, happy Mother's Day to you. We appreciate you being here as always. And happy Mother's Day to you as well. We appreciate you watching Inside Texas Politics, and back here next week to take you inside. Take care.